welcome to the final day of Top Draw. I hope everyone's having a wonderful time. I'm really, really excited about running this session today with these incredible women. You're all going to get so much from it. This session is not about the dreaded algorithm. I'm sure it will come up, it will. But is genuinely about what are we seeing on social media, what are those trends, how are people creating that compelling content, what do we mean when we talk about engaging conversations and authenticity and the dreaded reels. She's got us on reels. Of course, the last 18 months has 100% changed how we all use social media as people, as businesses, and it's how do we take that forward? What does this year look like? What does next year look like for you guys, your brands, the businesses that you're working with? And I'm hoping you're going to get all of that out today. So I am Tara Tomes. I run a PR agency called East Village, based up in Birmingham. We work with brands all over. And our kind of focus are those purpose-driven kind of consumer brands that are all around sustainability and diversity and inclusion, right through to impact-driven organisations, from your mental health charities, right through to any kind of community projects. We talk about brands who share good values and great stories. So I think that perfectly ties into what we're going to talk about today. Now it's time to meet the panel. If you want to hand over, just introduce yourselves and let everyone know where to find you, most importantly.
Shall I kick it off?
Yeah, please do.
Awesome. So great to be here today, particularly what we've gone through in the last year and a half, isn't it? So I'm Jess. I run an agency called Rock Social, and I'm a social media strategist, which means that I work with both organic social media and also paid ads for Facebook and Instagram. What else do? I do speaking engagements. I have a podcast called Unprecedented Women, which has Tiva on it, if you saw her earlier in the first episode. So yes, that's me, and I'm based in Sweden, so I'm really happy to be here today. A former Londoner gone to Sweden, that's me.
Hi everyone, my name's Camilla from Pink Storm Social. It's really lovely to be here, especially to see some friendly faces in the audience. I am predominantly a social media coach, so I help businesses and brands build an engaged audience and following on social media to help them sell their products and their services.
Hi. Oh, that's really loud. My name is Kirsty, and I run a business called Rebuildagram, and I am an Instagram obsessive. So if you want to know anything about Instagram, that's I can't do all the other Facebook things. Anyway, so I set up Rebuildagram beginning of last year, at the beginning of lockdown, and I help companies specifically in the homes and garden space to really smash it on Instagram. My background is in PR for years and years, but I did a couple of property renovations and was being influenced left, right, and centre by everybody and realised the power of Instagram. So Instagram is my thing.
Hi, everybody. Wow, I'm definitely the loudest person here. Welcome back. I'm Kat Rose. I run Sharp Fox Social. So I manage social media for clients, and I'm also a social media coach, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I coach a lot of businesses, small businesses, large businesses, and I help a lot of women with confidence on social media, which I know we're going to be chatting more about today. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Glad it wasn't just me who spoke and jumped out of their skin. So yeah, we're going to kick off. We're going to run through 10 kind of trends, key things for you guys to have as takeaways. We will all be here afterwards, and if we have time and you guys don't look like you're going to be shy, we'll do a little Q&A. So I'm just going to kick off with one that I think is so crucial at the moment, and that is around the rise of the socially conscious audience. You know, you guys will be seeing this. I think it is fair to say when you look at Gen Z, Alpha, you know, these guys really care. They care about society, they care about politics, they care about brands and what brands stand for. Companies have to focus on the issues that matter. We have known that since the beginning of time, but I think it is really fair to say that this is something that's really coming to the fore now. So think about what that looks like within your businesses. There will be some brands that absolutely open up every element of what they do, every decision that they make, every failure that they go through inevitably. That will happen for some brands. For others they won't. They will just touch upon certain issues. They will just touch upon I guess that kind of brand consciousness, and there is no right or wrong. This is when it really matters, understanding your brand and what's going to be right for you. The hard sell absolutely does not work for younger generations. And even if you're actually a brand sitting here thinking, well, my audience is 40 plus, I think it's fair that this is still something you need to focus on. Don't just think, oh, the socially conscious side only matters for the kids on TikTok. I think we're going to see this come through more and more. And I think, the last 18 months of this pandemic, without doubt, has seen just how important that storytelling is. And we're going to come on to a really nice piece around kind of storytelling and compelling content later on. Transparency. Think about the transparency behind your campaigns. Think about the things that you want to share. But remember, these guys are savvy. You cannot talk about something if you're not quite sure if it's true. And as a PR person, it pains me to say that because we're full of half-truths. But you can't. They're too savvy for that. They will dig deep. They will dig into your supply chain. We all know that social media is a curse and a blessing at times, but it does mean that the world is open to consumers. So make sure you're just being really, really conscious of that piece around transparency. Putting purpose at the heart of what you do, as me as a PR agency owner, that really matters to me. People matter, purpose matters, and not just as a kind of trending topic, as a genuine thing. So think about, what does mental health look like in your business? How is that portrayed within your brand? What does diversity, equity, and inclusion look like? What are you standing up for? How are you part of the conversations in society? I think these are things that brands have to consider on their social media. We all know it's about so much more of a conversation now. So that socially conscious audience, we absolutely know is going to increase. So brands have used social platforms in a marketing capacity. People like me have used it forever in a marketing capacity, but now we're seeing that rise in the kind of direct to consumer, that retail platform, this trend around social shopping. 87% of online shoppers say that social media helps them make a buying decision. So I'm telling you, it accelerates that decision-making process. You absolutely need to be part of that, using these faster conversions. So social shopping is something, even if you're not quite sure how to do it, something you need to be looking at. Think about social from as a retail platform, as product discovery. How can you give people that behind the scenes look, and then enhance the customer service that you offer? How do those three things fit in? So let's go to the panel. Guys, how can brands streamline and simplify their shopping processes online? Open to the floor.
Well, I think the checkout is obviously really, really important. You've got to make the checkout process as easy as possible, not too many steps, multiple ways to be able to pay for something. You've got to make the returns process really easy. Having to find DPD or take your parcel somewhere to be sent back is such a nightmare. So make sure that people can download a printable label. I've seen so many brands also adopt WhatsApp. They've got a WhatsApp direct contact, which I think makes such a difference. And they've got their WhatsApp number on Facebook and Instagram, as well as their website. So I think it's having that one-to-one contact and a person that actually responds to your inquiry that makes such a difference.
Absolutely, and I think it's that expectation from customer, isn't it now? Actually, we talk about the free returns, but then again, going back to that socially conscious customer, how do we balance the two of those things? That expectation, the speed that people want. Actually, you do see brands like H&M stop their next day delivery at times to focus on that demand. I think it is really crucial that we understand the balance between expectations, but then also this rise in wanting to be more socially conscious.
And I think also you can stop the level of high returns by having a frequently asked questions section on your website, having someone there to answer questions about products straight away, so that you haven't got such a high return rate.
Absolutely.
I think for me, let's take it back to basics and make sure that people can actually purchase as easily as possible. So if you've got the option of having an Instagram shop, please set up an Instagram shop so that people can just click that product link in your post and buy something really simply. I've seen clients every day who haven't set up an Instagram shop, and it's so simple to do through the Facebook catalogue. Please do it if you've got the option available to you.
And Tara, I was just going to say, I've already got Reels into the conversation already, but does anybody like Reels? Hands up for people that like Reels. Oh, not many. I've got to convert you all. Okay, so Instagram Reels is such a powerful medium, and we're starting to see Reels ads now. So I think start thinking about how you're advertising, because some of the Reels ads are really good, sometimes better than just organic Reels we're seeing. So think really creatively about how you're reaching out to your customers. So.
Yeah, perfect. I think for me with the Reels, you've got to convert me today because it's the
I'll do
pointing.
it.
I can't watch anyone else point. I don't care. And the new thing with the slappy slap, that's not for me. And that leads us really, really well onto our kind of next trend around video. And video content is going to dominate. You know, we've already heard Instagram, and we saw everyone up in arms about Instagram saying they're kind of going to be this video first platform. You know, for how can we use video? Why should we be using video? You know, how do we kind of entertain and inspire people through something that actually some people will wholeheartedly embrace, but others might not? And, you know, it almost goes back to that point around having the shop. I know brands that would do it, but it's just another thing, and if only a couple of people buy, is it worth it? You know, I think a lot of people feel that way about video as well.
Yes, can I talk about video?
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's no question that for me that video is having a massive moment, certainly on Instagram, but across social media. And if you're a business, I think you really need to just step up and say, right, I'm going to put video content into the mix if you want to grow your account and to get sales. And for me, the two drivers of that have been, Tara's talked already about lockdown. You know, before lockdown, there were some stats that said in 2019, we were consuming 6.5 hours of video content online per day. Now that was pre-lockdown, and you know, the amount of time I spent on my phone through lockdown, you know, that number can only have gone up.
Yeah, so I think I doubled that.
Okay. Okay, so the general trend is upwards, and it's sort of like, you know, do you get in the game or do you not? Or do you hold back? So for me, the businesses I work with, I'm saying, like, get in the game. And the other big driver of all of this has been TikTok. Hands up, anybody got TikTok? Okay, good. A few more people. Okay, so the growth of TikTok has been phenomenal, and those that have got it will understand why, because, right, it's so addictive, okay? And it has really transformed what people are expecting, the way it's fed to you, that you don't select particular TikToks, and, you know, they've now been, it's the most downloaded social media app of all time, and they're hitting 1 billion users, and those are the kind of stats that's got Instagram and Facebook, who owns it, really concerned. And so what we're seeing, Adam Mosseri, who's head of Instagram, came out just a month ago and, you know, was more transparent than he's ever been before, and said, you know, Instagram is no longer just a photo sharing app. And lots of people threw their hands up in horror, but, you know, that's what it's always been, and it's moving on to, you know, more and more video content. And as a business, I'm saying to all my clients, you need to start thinking about video. What they normally say back to me is, oh God, it's really expensive. Do I have to hire a film crew? How do I do it? It's so time consuming. It doesn't have to be any of those things, but it's about taking small steps to start with. So for example, today, I don't know if anybody's been making stories about their trip around Top Drawer today. So perhaps in the past, maybe you would have done a photograph. How about just taking some video as you're going around Top Drawer, post it to your stories? That kind of content will get really good engagement, and the algorithm will be really happy with you. Another way to think about it is, instead of doing a post, think about doing a tour, a short video. So maybe a tour of your store or a tour of your product. You don't need to go and hire a camera crew. Your phone is perfectly adequate. I've got a small ring light that I use, which you can get on Amazon. You don't need to invest lots of money to start using video content. There's a really brilliant account called Helen Turkington Home. I don't know if anybody follows her, if you're into homes and interiors like I am. And she started using video at the beginning of lockdown, wasn't it? And she has absolutely been smashing it. So if you want to see somebody using video really well, that's a great account to go and have a look at. Of course, for me, I'm a bit obsessed with Reels, because for my clients, they deliver the fastest results if you're going to use video. If anybody doesn't know what Instagram Reels are, they are basically Instagram's version of TikTok. So they're short form videos that 15 to 60 seconds long. They tend to have music with them. They are entertaining. As Tara said, there's quite a lot of pointing and dancing. But there are two reasons for me to be jumping on board with Reels. Firstly, the algorithm is pushing that content harder than anything else on Instagram. So if you want to reach more people, then you start making Reels, you will see a difference. And secondly, that that content is sticking around. So if I made a post about today, probably that would be seen by my followers and perhaps some new people for 24 hours. If I make a reel, that could keep being seen by new people for up to 6 weeks. And that's new people that Instagram is pushing your content to. So it's the one place on the Instagram platform that you can reach the most people. So I just wanted to give you an idea. So there's an account that I've worked with who has started, they were slogging away growing Instagram, and it took them 6 years to get to 60,000 followers. They started making reels, and in 6 weeks they doubled their following. And you need to get your reels right and on message and work out who you're reaching, but they are a really powerful way of growing. I'm like, start making reels, people.
And how do you plan your reels or your content? Do you go out to your followers, ask them what they want to see? Do you save inspiration for later? What's that kind of process that you go through? Because I'd imagine for a lot of people, they sit here like, cool, but where on earth do I start?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the one thing that stops people jumping on board. I think first of all they feel a bit embarrassed and they're like, reels are for like teenagers. Can I really do this? Does it fit with my brand? But I think the first thing I'd say is download TikTok if you haven't got it, so you can see where Instagram Reels is going. Number 2, start watching Reels. The more you watch, the more you'll understand and get your eye in for what works and what doesn't. My third tip would be just don't look at just your competitors. If you just look at people in your niche, it's the path to utter misery, isn't it? You're just like, everybody's done everything. I've got no ideas. I'll just give up. So look outside your niche. The fashion industry is particularly good on Reels. They've got some really great ideas. Look at trends. So there are lots of trends that come from TikTok. You can look on the For You page to see what's trending on TikTok before it comes to Reels. Look out for audio. This is my best way of finding ideas, is I find a song that might work for something, where the lyrics are right, and you can save that audio into your save folder in your Instagram and use it for another day. So save your audios when you find a good one. And big warning, tiny bit of advice is just don't go massively off-piste. I think I get probably asked more than anything, how can I make my reels go viral? You don't need to be viral. You just need some views for the right people on your reels. So, this whole thing of like, I need to get 1 million views is, to me, is a vanity trip. Just think about what the messages you're using for all your other type of content and make reels of that same messages, okay? And I was going to say, you don't have to dance. If anybody thinks they have to dance, you don't have to dance.
Yes.
And you don't have to point, I promise. We're going to get you reeling. And just before, last thing on Reels, there's a really brilliant account called Martha Brooke. Does anybody know Martha Brooke Stationery? Really beautiful. And Martha jumped on Reels when they came out last year in August, and she decided to make a reel a week, and it has absolutely blown up her account. Go and have a look. They're really doable. They're not scary. Not too much pointing and dancing.
Can I add as well, the place that I like to go to find reels that I can kind of replicate or take inspiration from is I just go to the Explore page on Instagram, so I just go to my little magnifying glass, and then I'll put a hashtag into the search bar. So any hashtag, maybe silver jewellery, blue blouse, and then the Explore page comes up, and every single Explore page, if there are any reels that have used that hashtag, it will be in the top left-hand corner. As soon as you click on it, you can start scrolling down the feed of every reel that's used that hashtag. So that's a really good way to find good reels.
Amazing.
And if you sell clothing, Bowden does amazing, very simple reels that are easy to replicate.
Amazing, thank you.
Miller, sorry, how many hashtags would you recommend using on a reel?
Well, that's a very good, tricky question, Kat. Well, you can obviously use up to 30. I know there's been loads of debate recently about hashtags across the board on Instagram. I think, obviously, test what works best for your content, but if we can use 30, if we can find 30 relevant hashtags, use 30.
Brilliant, thank you, ladies. Now, on the flip, the next trend I'm really on board with, the idea of going live. So I think it's because, and I'm sure loads of you will get this, like I don't feel like I'm a content creator. So for me, I'm like, yeah, I can talk about anything, that's fine. But that piece around going live is going to be huge. This kind of live streaming, and I don't mean Twitch and the like, but the idea and the notion of going live, apparently by next year, that's going to be 17% of all internet traffic. I mean, you've got to get yourself going live. we've touched on this a little bit already, but actually, Kat, I think a lot of people are hesitant to go live because they lack the confidence, they think it's going to go wrong, they can't ever imagine us sitting up here and then doing it online. You know, what's the advice that you give for people who are absolutely sitting there in that space?
Okay, so how many of you have ever been live on social media? Wow. Is that all? And why is that? Is it lack of confidence for the rest of you? Feel like you've got nothing to say, a bit nervous? I'll let you into a little secret. I get so nervous public speaking, and I've done a lot of it. So don't be sucked into this, into this thought process that everybody on Instagram and Facebook is super confident. They're not. They are just well prepared, and that is my top tip for going live. So Kirsty was saying that, Instagram wants us to make use of the Reels functionality. It also wants us to make use of Lives and IGTV. That's why they're available to you. It's also absolutely vital to go live to get your audience to trust you, to see you in real time, to be able to answer their questions. But I've got a couple of top tips of how not to fall on your backside when going live. Number one, have something to say. It's no good going live, here's me drinking a cup of coffee or walking the dog. Nobody cares, sorry. They just don't care. So what you need to do is you actually need to have something to say that speaks to your audience. Who are you talking to when you go live? And what are you trying to tell them? Are you trying to fix a problem for them? Are you trying to make them laugh? Really, really have a purpose to that piece of live content. I know that sounds really obvious, but it's the first stumbling block for a lot of people. The second thing I would say is get people to send questions beforehand. I'm going to be honest, if they don't send you any questions, make them up. So that you've got something to start talking about when you hit that live streaming button. Nobody wants to see you watching your screen going, I'm just waiting for people to join. You've lost your audience. You've lost them immediately, okay? So you need to just start talking. To answer questions, a really, really great tip, I think Kirsty's going to touch on this a little bit more, is going live with other people. My God, if you've never been live before, don't try and do it on your own to start with. Just, find a friend to go live with, to share the pain. And I think keep it short and sweet would be another top tip. Just cover off the basics, get those questions answered, but don't waffle on for an hour. Nobody's going to watch it, unless you're doing a live styling session, in which case they may well do. Kirsty?
Shall I do a few more tips?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so obviously that you've touched on some brilliant things there around actually the kind of content and how we can use it. So not just on Instagram, but actually, in private Facebook groups and, touching back on that piece around it being around customer service. What kind of things should people be going live with from a content point of view?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of, exactly as Kat was saying, think about a structure for what you're doing. So, for example, setting up a Q&A session with beforehand so you ask for questions is a really good idea. Or think about teaching something. I was thinking about, for example, if you were you made stationery, why not invite somebody in that's like a wedding planner, and you could do a session talking together about the logistics of organising a wedding. And in that thing, you are not only when you go live with somebody else are you passing on really valuable information to your followers. That live is then streamed on Instagram to 2 different audiences. So you are getting in front of their audience, you're getting in front of their, whichever way around. Anyway. So think about doing where you're sharing information with your audience, or think about demoing a new product. There are 2 brilliant accounts that do this really well in the fashion business that Miller and I were just talking about, Wise London and Ray Feather, and I don't know if any of you follow them, but they do a really good job of doing lives where they run through their new product range before it's launched, and it's brilliant. You just watch them trying on the clothes, they're talking about what they're looking at, different new products. It's a really, really good way. And similarly, another idea might be if you're a jewelry company, for example, you might think about doing a styling session with an influencer where you do it live together and you style the jewelry in lots of different ways. So always think about adding value. Miller and I they've actually now launched on Instagram a live room. I don't know if anybody's seen live rooms, which now means that you can actually go live with 3 other people. So if you're really feeling a fear, bring in 3 people, and we do one every month, and it's brilliant, and it gets all of your content in front of everybody's audiences. So that's a really super way.
Brilliant.
I also think, like Tara said, you can use a live afterwards in so many different ways. You can obviously save it to your grid so that people can watch it, in 6 months' time. You can screen record it on your phone, so you could then post it in a Facebook group, or you could post it to LinkedIn. And obviously, if you send a regular emailer, you could link to it from your emailer just to keep that traffic going and to make sure that lots of people watch it.
Brilliant.
I would say also that we're not looking for perfection here, right? I mean, going live is the actual format isn't perfection. So don't look for that. It's okay. We're forgiving audiences. We're interested in the message and value that you bring. So start small, do stories and things like that when you kind of do little snippets of video, and then you feel more comfortable, and then you go live, go big.
Oh, also, there's apparently, I saw a story, was it yesterday or the day before, saying that Instagram is launching a new system where you can practice your lives. So you can actually go live in front of just 1 or 2 people. So you actually get to practice pressing the buttons, trying the whole thing. So keep your eyes peeled, see if you get that feature.
Yeah, that's a very cool feature.
Sorry, 2 more tips as well. One is you obviously...
this is jam-packed, guys. I hope you're writing this down.
You obviously want to announce that you're going live. Don't just announce it on the day and say, I'm going live at 12. Announce it probably 3 or 4 days before. Put a countdown sticker in your stories so people can set a reminder. And then the only thing that I would say, when you go live, it is vital that your Wi-Fi is strong. It's nothing worse than going like a minute and a half in and suddenly realizing that you've got unstable Wi-Fi. So just make sure you're in the part of your house that has the strongest Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we've all been there on Zooms all the time. And I think another great way, if you do want to practice, and I say practice, it is still live, but I think sometimes the thought of video can be the thing that actually tips people over the edge. Clubhouse, everyone's forgotten about Clubhouse. Remember when that was the thing? But I think Clubhouse is a really great way, actually. If you want to get involved in Q&As and if you want to connect with other brands, get involved in a Clubhouse room, just dip in, see how other people present the information they know. And I think, just your point, we're not looking for perfection. Nobody is. And that's actually where I think social media today, moving away from faceless brands and some of this behind-the-scenes content, starts to build that up. People like the mishaps. They like that you're human. So I think don't be too afraid. Don't be too afraid to do that. But yeah, so ease yourself in with Clubhouse as well, and some Reels dancing. I think one of the things that lots of people are saying, and we're hearing loads of clients talk about, and lots of influencers, you're doing all of this brilliant content, you're like, yeah, I've nailed this, look at me go, but the organic reach is so down. So one of the areas I think is hugely underutilized is social media advertising. I think too many people think it is complicated, incredibly so. I think naturally it has advertising in it, so everyone thinks it's expensive and absolutely out of reach, but that is not the case. I think for me, social media advertising has created some of the most powerful campaigns, some of the most engaging content, and it's something that you guys really, really need to be looking at. So Jess, I guess to you, how are you helping people through that notion of thinking that social media ads are too complicated? What are your kind of top tips for running ad campaigns?
Well, they are and they aren't. Is the answer to that? Yeah, no, I'm going to break that down for you. Bear with me. I think with anything digital, the way that it is now is that, we used to print an ad in the paper and it used to be very expensive, and we knew kind of roughly how many, bought that paper, looked at that ad. But these days we can follow eyeballs from the very first interaction all the way down to conversion. So it offers a world of opportunity, really. And I think that's the challenge, really, is that Facebook has made it rather complicated from the outset. Ads Manager used to be kind of simple. It was easier to run your ads yourself. These days it's grown and it's a big company and ads become more complicated. There are more opportunities for us. So being a strategist, I'm obviously going to bring up the word strategy. That is absolutely key. So you need to start with your ideal client. Who are they? What makes them tick? What is the value, the unique value proposition that you have that nobody else offers? And what are your goals? What are you looking to do? You know, we all want to sell, but sometimes we want to put people through a funnel where we convert at the end for something else, you know, and there's loads of options in choosing what kind of strategy you want to have with your ads. And then it comes to the content. So you can do ads that are simple image, you can do carousels, you can do video, you can do reels. You know, there's loads and loads of options there, stories as well. So you really have got to kind of test, which is also like a key word when it comes to advertising, because it is essentially a lot cheaper than traditional ads. You have the opportunity of playing around with your audiences, with your content, with your copy. So what I normally do is that I test a different kind of aspect of everything and then just do some A/B testing, what works best, A or B, and that's where you put your budget towards what delivers. So you've got to be able to read the CPRs and the CPMs and all of these sounding complicated terms, but really they are not once you know what you're doing. What is easy though with ads is wasting money. So the whole boost, the whole boost culture is, I'm not saying that boosting post doesn't work, because it does, but what you've got to nail is your audience when you boost. So you've got to know that you built your audience in Ads Manager, and so your ads are talking to the right people. Then the other part of it is you can never take an organic post that doesn't work and boost it up. So you've got to make sure that if you're boosting, which I'm a big fan of, make sure that you got your audience and you pick something that works great organically, because you can then, you know, make that fly really, really high and reach new audiences. But there's got to be value in it. It's got to be good working organically, and you've got to know your audience.
And is there a right kind of time period for an ad campaign? You know, what is there a formula where you say, okay, this is my goal, I want to sell X number of units, when do I give up on that, or how long do I need to give it?
I mean, traditionally, for businesses that are represented here at Top Drawer, we're looking at Christmas, which is starting now in our world. So Christmas campaigns will be more expensive, and you've got to prepare them very early on. So it works in a kind of auction way, Facebook ads do. So the price will go up when there is a higher demand, which Christmas will be. Having said that, it's still reasonably inexpensive to run. But is there a magic date in the calendar that guarantees that your campaign is going to work and you're going to convert and have lots of sales? No. There is not.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, and there's another aspect of the whole thing as well, is that the iOS 14 upgrade from Apple, which we know and hate at the same time, love and all of that, that has really put a spanner in the works for e-commerce. Because we used to be able to track a lot more events, such as checkout, which we talked about earlier, and abandonment of carts and things like that. We're now able to track less events. And maybe that's a good thing in the sense that we're not being tracked as consumers, and you can opt out. But I would rather have ads served to me that I'm interested in than just random ads. So that's an aspect of the tracking as well. But it has put a spanner in the works for sure, but it's still absolutely possible.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the e-commerce space. Actually, the session this afternoon at 2:00 is definitely worth you guys sticking around for the e-commerce bootcamp. They're going to go into this in a little more detail, but there is a real challenge. But I think your point there around the content in the first place, understanding, does that piece of content work? Actually, that's the most important, because you can just throw money behind it, but if it never quite engaged with the audience, then it's a bit of wasted money.
You'd be surprised as well, I think, if I showed you a couple of ads here and gave you an A and B example. One very fancy, nice-looking, designed ad, and then something that was a lot simpler, and told you that the simple one actually delivers higher return on investment than the fancy one. So that's sometimes hard with clients to explain why that is, because they're precious about their brand, and I'm precious about mine, so I totally get it. But do we want to convert? Or it's still true to the brand, but you can get away with the simpler version. And video is also super important, so that's a good content format to test.
Thanks. So hopefully you guys found that really, really useful. I think ads can be very daunting, much like our next trend, which is influencers. as an agency, we work with lots of influencers for lots of different businesses, brands, and it's so important to understand why you're working with an influencer. I hear people all the time, much like any kind of PR and marketing, just do these things, but everything has to have that goal behind it, and I think influencers is where you really, really see that come into its own. There can be a lot of wastage, a lot like ads as well. You can end up, paying for posts that you never see go up, giving away tons of freebies because you didn't set the expectations. So for me, from an agency point of view, the biggest thing is right from the off, set what those expectations are. If you are going to work with an influencer, whether it is gifted, whether it's for paid promotion, make sure that from the off you are saying, we're going to give you X product service of X value in return for these things. Don't suddenly throw things in at the end like, oh, I would have liked to have seen a story with that grid post, or oh, I would love you to give me some of your engagement figures. Set that expectation from the off and you're going to have a much, much better relationship. Get those rate cards, understand, yes, influencers are there to make money. It is their job, so absolutely do not offend them as a brand and say, well, what else do you do apart from this? Don't do that. I think you've got to go in, and there is no right or wrong, whether you guys directly as a brand or an agency like us, there is no right or wrong. It will depend on your product, your service, the influencers, what you want to get out of it. So just take a bit of time, I think, is really, really important. Kat, I guess coming over to you, talk me through your kind of thoughts on influencer marketing. How can people make this really genuinely work for them? Is it right for everyone?
When I told a couple of people today I was talking about influencer marketing, they immediately rolled their eyes and went, ugh, influencers. And I think the word influencer can be a bit of a dirty word. I don't know what you guys think, but I think what's really interesting is we're seeing this massive trend towards micro influencers and nano influencers. I mean, somebody will be going, nano what? But this trend from just looking at people with hundreds of thousands of followers to actually looking at people that their audiences are really listening to what they're saying and buying into them. And that can be people with just 5,000 followers. I mean, that's quite good, isn't it? But actual really, really engaged audiences. And so there's a big trend towards this. And I think, look, we're all a lot more savvy about being advertised to on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. And obviously, legally, there has to be a lot more transparency now. You have to say hashtag gifted or hashtag sponsored content or whatever it might be. So we're all a lot more aware of it. But I think what's really, really important now is if you're looking to work with an influencer, find somebody that is on brand for you. If they're not directly, on brand, i.e. they're not another sort of clothing brand or whatever, but Kirsty made a good point earlier, said actually they might be an interior decorator who's got a real style flair, so they might work well with your clothing brand. But look at rate of engagement of an influencer. So look at the conversations that they're having. Don't just look at their followers. Look at the number of comments that they're getting and whether those comments are genuine, whether they're whether their content's being saved. Make sure that these people send you the little stats of how well their engagement rates are doing and how their posts are performing. I think that's really important. There's a real element of believability now when working with influencers. There's a girl I love on Instagram called Kat Sims, Not So Smug Now. I don't know if any of you follow her. She's bloody hilarious. But when she sells a product, you don't feel like you're being sold to. You feel like it's just cool because Kat's got it. And I think there's a real trend towards that now, a real trend towards actually, believability of what your influencer is selling and working with those kinds of people. So as I say, massive trend towards nano and micro influencers. Kirsty, have you got anything to add? Miller?
No, I just think be really open. I've got a couple of clients who hadn't worked with influencers before and were really nervous about doing it and didn't know. They're like, can someone tell me how to do it? How many posts do I get? How many stories do I get? Just be open and have a dialogue. And if you say, look, I haven't done this before, I'd really like to work with you. What are your rate cards? Influence offer will send you their rate card. And just be really transparent and then get it in writing so that when you set off, say, okay, well, this is when it's going to happen. This is how many posts I'm going to get. This is how many stories I'm going to get, because you don't want to give away stuff for free.
I think what's interesting to me is this, again, the issue of confidence, which I constantly work with clients on, and they come to me and they say, right, this influencer thing, how do I get started? And I say, right, okay, well, look, I've got a little bank of people I think might be great for you. And they say, okay, but I couldn't possibly contact them. Well, why not? They're a human being. They're not, they're nothing special. So just literally send them a direct message. If you don't get a response on direct message, send them an email. And you never know. They might be happy to be just, receive a product that's been gifted. They may have a rate card. They may want to be paid. But have the conversation, and you don't know unless you try. I've had lots of clients who've, contacted people that never thought would actually engage in a conversation with them. And lo and behold, suddenly they've got a great working relationship. So I would say don't be scared to just get in touch with people.
Yeah, definitely.
I would also add, make sure you're following them and you've possibly commented and liked a couple of their posts, because if you send them a direct message and you're not following them, they will check to see whether you're following them, so make sure you are.
I think it goes back as well to that authenticity piece around the brand, and if you are contacting an influencer, it's because they feel right, they're the right fit. It goes back to the wider branding piece around, you're not just creating products and services, whatever it is you do, especially in the retail space, it's a lifestyle. And that's where actually connecting with some of these influencers who aren't a direct, if you're a clothing brand, they might not be a fashion influencer. That's where you're getting people in, their audiences. Think about the power of an audience engaged with them, as you talked about, Kat, and you don't really feel like you're being sold to. And I think there's a real power in that. It's so easy to kind of get caught up in where on earth do I start. I guess talking about that shoppable piece as well, and next trend, Pinterest. I think Pinterest is massively underutilised, massively so. We all know we have the shoppable pins, you have your kind of explore content. This goes back to that repurposed content piece. For every reel that you make, how are you then feeding that out? How are you using it as a reel, as an ad? Can you put it on Pinterest and make it work? When you think about Pinterest, you've got people in this kind of active shopping mode. I guess in the same way as an influencer, when someone, when I look at the influencers that I love to follow, I'm in almost an active shopping mode because I'm buying into their lifestyle, I'm buying into the things that they're talking about and the products they're using, and I think Pinterest is even more powerful in that respect. So think about how are you using it. You can do ads as well now, going back to that piece around, actually, yes, it can be a little bit complicated, burst that bubble, but actually it's very affordable when you look at why you're doing it, what you're trying to get out of it. I think it's just so effective to getting through to your customers. And the one thing that I love at the minute is that social media generally, there are experts all around us. You don't have to learn the hard way. I think that can be the thing sometimes, when actually if you just reach out, there are some brilliant kind of Pinterest experts, if you like. Jen Stanbrook, she's great if you don't follow her and you want to understand how can I really use Pinterest for my brand. Get yourself there, ask the questions, slide into people's DMs, say I don't know where I can start, have a look through. And I think there's definitely something in making sure that you're following people as well. So yeah, I think Pinterest is really underutilised.
Can I add something on Pinterest?
Absolutely.
So I think that going back to talking about the ideal client as well as remembering who they are. So if you've got an ideal client who is female, and you're selling an item, i.e. a product, you should definitely be on Pinterest, because pinners are an absolute majority women. So, and they are in active shopping mode. We all are when we pin. So it's a key platform choice for that target audience.
And I think Pinterest has really changed. I very much used to just pin loads of home inspo, but I think that shopping piece and that transaction, then going back to what Kat was saying earlier about make it easy for people to buy, think about that process, because, I'm leading myself perfectly onto the next trend. Social media is about a customer experience. It's about customer service. So now we have everything from your chatbots, your DMs, your SMS, your WhatsApp messages. Think about how does all of that play into the customer service piece that you're offering as well. One of the greatest things I think you can do with anything with social media, not just around customer service, is step outside of your role, step outside of you today and think about your ideal customer. What is their customer journey from the very, very first time that they see your brand? Do you want it to be an influencer? Do you want it to be a billboard? Do you want it to be in a magazine? Think about every single process that they will go through, every touch point with your business and brand, and every sticking point. If we think about products and services, and I always say to people, you are not selling a product or service, you're selling a solution. So think about the problems that they are going to come up against. Is it the returns policy? Is it that you have sent a product out next day delivery to someone who lives in the middle of nowhere? How on earth are they going to get that return back? Start to think about that journey, and I think it will really change how your customer service kind of approach will be.
I've got a little top tip that I give to my clients, in particular my retail clients, and it's such a simple thing. The direct messages on Facebook and Instagram are really underused still for me, and one of the best things that you can do as a retailer, if somebody DMs you and they're interested in one of your products, don't just send them a text back and say, yes, it's £99. Record a voice note, or even better, record a video. Send them a little personalised video of other products that they've got in other colourways that they might like. Sending a voice note or a little video is always going to excite them 1,000 times more than a little blanket text message that doesn't mean anything. So just, make use of the DMs, make use of personalising them.
Yeah, I think that's such a good tip. That voice notes piece, I think, some people are like that. You look at their WhatsApp chats, you look at their Instagram DMs, it's all voice notes. But people get excited, don't they? They get excited by that. And this is where, when you think about the customer experience, for me, that human, even if as the brand, even if someone goes on your grid, goes on your product page, and it's very brand heavy, there's no people content, think about where those human touch points are. It's still okay to have a faceless brand on the grid. If that is your brand, that's fine. But think about where that human connection comes in, and where I think the power in that really is when it goes wrong. Because when you start to share some of the issues you've come against, when you've got some of that behind the scenes content of you made a mistake, you wanted to do this, that's where the negative comments will come to you directly. People will feel like there is a communication channel rather than going out to the public forum. So it's really crucial, not just to excite them, but actually I think to kind of to reduce some of that negativity that brands can have when things go wrong. And that's where we saw Twitter really, really come into its own. But the problem is Twitter is still a public forum. Even if you're in the EE or whatever, ASOS, having a customer service team there to spot the tweets is important. But I actually think if you can stop that tweet ever happening, that's where the real power is. We've touched on some of this, but I would really, really love to kind of get your guys' thoughts on goals and metrics. I think for lots of brands, if you've got an in-house team and you don't have to kind of, showcase your ROI and the amount of time you're putting into social media, it's okay if you've got a bit of wastage. But actually, for anyone, why wouldn't you want to understand how something works? Why wouldn't you want to get more sales and engagement? So, we've seen these vanity metrics really come into play, and how many followers have I got, and how many views has my video had. But Jess, for you, from an ads point of view, what metrics do you think are the most important for people to be looking out for?
I think from an organic standpoint, if we start there, it's really about the engagement. So rather than focusing on likes, and I know that everybody here is going to agree with me, but rather than focus on vanity metrics, we're looking at savability, shareability, that sort of thing, much stronger signals to the algorithm, the dreaded algorithm, than anything else. When it comes to ads, it's slightly more complicated because it really depends on kind of what you're looking at and what your campaign is all about. In ads, it tends to be a campaign with a beginning and an end, and there are so many different things that you can look at. Obviously, you want to get the cost down, you want to get the conversion high, you want to get the engagement high, but at the end of the day, it's really about selling. So there's a wealth of data that you can look at, and it really makes me really upset when I meet potential clients and they say, well, I had an agency and they sent me this scorecard, but I couldn't read it. I didn't understand. And it is the worst thing when you're sat there like a client and not understanding what the CPM and the CPR is. And at the end of the day, that's key for me to have a relationship where I can, coach and explain this is how it works and this is what we need to do now. Because Facebook ads are great when they work, but you want to be able to do something when they don't. So when they don't work, you've got to look at, okay, where is the problem? Is it the landing page that's not converting? I can send people to a landing page, but it's not converting. So if that's your goal, then you can then have those metrics and see them and say, okay, here is where the problem lies. So it really is very hard to answer, but we have the possibility of looking at all this wealth of data, and that is a great thing.
Yeah, so where that data is overwhelming, because you're like, I don't know what any of that means, actually, when you know what you're looking for, it's so powerful, it's so helpful. And then, Kirsty, how does that play out into when you're making these fun reels? Actually, where do these metrics play out? Should we be looking at views? What should we be looking at?
So when reels were launched, all we had was this blunt thing. All we could see is how many views it had got. And so everybody became obsessed with getting the numbers of views. And it tended to be over the first hour, you would see how your reel was doing. You come back after the first hour and you'd be like, oh, I've got 3 views. So gradually we've been waiting, and finally we've got some more insights now on Reels. So now you can see saves. That to me is probably the most valuable. If people are actually bothering to save your content, then so when you go back into your insights, and I tell everybody, have a monthly, set aside a day a month where you sit and look at your Instagram insights. It's really dull and really boring, but if you do it, if you see the content that's working, then that's what you need to make more of. So look at your saves, and for me the most valuable thing is when your Reels get shared, because that means people have taken the trouble to like it, comment it, save it, and then actually to be bothered to share it, especially now that Instagram has started making sharing a bit more tricky. I don't know if anybody else has experienced the change in the sharing route, which is quite frustrating. I would start looking at those kind of metrics, and don't worry about the big view numbers. I've got lots of people that have had reels with 1 million views. They've got no followers from it and no sales from it. So don't worry about all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. The vanity metrics, I think, becomes really dangerous because ultimately it's about the bottom line. So,
for me, stories on Instagram and Facebook, and using those engagement stickers on stories, and the number of people that actually respond to them is really important for me as well. So that getting that engagement, people actually, use those engagement stickers on Instagram stories, Facebook stories. If you don't know what I mean, those are the poll questions. What else? Countdown, slider. Yeah. Utilize those. Use them for market research. Ask people what they want to see more of. Do they like the blue shoes? Do they like the red shoes? Do they like, what do they want to see more of on your social media? Getting people to actually engage with those is now a really important metric for me.
I think it's also worth remembering that every different type of content that you post will have different results. So if you post a picture of your face, yes, you're going to get loads of likes, but you probably won't get that many people visiting your website. If you post a picture of a product, you may not get so many likes, but you will get lots of people tapping on that product tag. So don't expect all your content to have the same results.
Yeah, I think that's so crucial, isn't it? I think people can fall down that hole of the content's doing the same thing every time, and it's just not. Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say that, at least for me, one of the key strategies to success on Instagram is really utilizing all of the different features. So understanding how reels work, how stories work, and what they can do for your brand. And not, like you say, Milla, expect the same results, because they can serve you if you have strategy that is dedicated to that actual feature. So stories you might share more, get more engagement, share more behind the scenes, then, you know, it's going to go better for you in that aspect of the whole of Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we've talked a little bit about Instagram there, but this goes across every social media channel and leads us really, really perfectly into our final trend, which you'll all be happy to hear. But actually around that storytelling piece, and how do you create content that works, compelling content. You know, there are so many ways now to repurpose your content. A blog, you know, if you show a behind the scenes story, that might then feed into some really nice kind of engagement stickers that then becomes a blog post all about your journey, that then becomes a Twitter conversation with similar founders. Think about how you can bring all of this across social media channels. Milla, we're going to talk to you a little bit about kind of that content piece. How do you really create some engaging content, compelling content? What is, when we talk about storytelling, when annoying people like me and PRs say you should do great storytelling, what are we talking about? Why does it matter?
Woo. Is that me? Sorry. Well, the first thing I think we need to remember is that social media is such a great way for you to humanize your brands, to humanize your business, to create that human voice. So many people I train fall into the kind of wrong bucket of assuming that social media is just a duplication of their website, and it's really not. Like, social is such a good place for you to stand out. So the first thing to think about when you're producing content is who is your audience and how can you help them. You've really got to make your pages on social a useful resource for them. That will keep people coming back. That will they'll share your content a lot more if it's useful to them. So think about your pain points, as Tara said earlier. When it comes to planning your content, it is really useful to have a bit of a calendar, a bit of a schedule, have a think about the next, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks. What am I going to post? So come back to your audience. How can I be helpful to them? And how can I tell my story? So we all love storytelling as children. We love people reading books to us. You know, it's ingrained in us to tell stories. And your story is really just about you, about your business, about your products, about your services. You know, you can bring your products to life by telling their story. You know, maybe give them names and give them personalities. That really helps to build trust, make you relatable. If someone's going to remember you, what are they going to remember you for? There's so much competition on social media. There's so much noise. Lots of people will be doing something very similar to you. So what is it that makes you different? And how can you tell that story through your content? So think about where your audience is. If they're on Instagram, then you must be telling your story on Instagram. If they're on Twitter, then you must be telling your story on Twitter. Think about, as I said, how you can help them, how you can provide useful content, and then think about the format that they like to read. Do they like to read? Do they like to watch? Are they going to enjoy a video more than just a single post? Perhaps they like swiping across a carousel. You know, you can post up to 10 images in one, you can post 10 images in one post. Perhaps that's the content they like. So think about what your audience is watching, what your audience is digesting, and then plan your content accordingly. And also, the last thing I'll say on this is that please don't feel like you need to be posting every day on any of the platforms. It's really not necessary. Always think quality over quantity. So if you're struggling to produce 5 good posts a week, then strip that back to just 1 or 2 really good posts a week and ramp up your stories if it's on Instagram that you are. So always think quality over quantity, and always think, how can I help my audience? What is useful to them?
And how do you feel about pre-scheduled content as part of that, you know, planning 2-3 weeks in advance? Should people just go away, schedule that content, and then not think about it until the next 3-week loop?
So I think there's definitely a place for scheduling. I know it helps lots of people, but I think it's also really important to be topical to what's going on in the everyday. So I wouldn't recommend scheduling more than 3 weeks in advance, especially in the current climate. But I think as long as you are there as well on the day when that schedule post goes out to respond to any comments, to interact with your audience, then it's fine. I wouldn't say that you can schedule for next Wednesday and then not even think about it on the Wednesday. So I definitely think there's a time and place for scheduling, but I also think you have to be relevant, you have to be timely, and you have to be reactive to what's going on at that time.
Brilliant, thank you. And we touched on user-generated content. How do you guys, anyone got any thoughts on how we can create more user-generated content? Because then they're doing that job for you, aren't they? You know, your customers are then sharing their experiences.
This is a really interesting one, I think, because all across social media, we sometimes forget to ask people what we want them to do. So there's a lack of call to action, and it seems so simple when you say it, but sometimes you don't. You have to lead your audience. You have to tell them what you want them to do. So if you want more user-generated content, create a branded hashtag and ask them to use it. Put it in your bio if it's solely yours. Otherwise, there's no room for hashtags in bios, in my opinion. And ask them in stories to share, you know, when they're wearing your stuff or what have you. That is free content that somebody's creating for you. And it is so important for that keyword trust as well.
Yeah.
And it will inspire. And that's why we're all on social media, to get inspired, entertained and educated. So
definitely, and I think that's where on and offline can work really, really well. You know, think about when you're trying on something new, you're in the changing room, well, just put your social media handles and your hashtags on a vinyl on the mirror. You know, make it easy for people. Those two things don't happen in isolation. So think about how that on and offline world can connect and really support each other.
I love supporting small businesses. I love buying from small businesses, but nothing makes me more cross when I receive a really lovely parcel in the post, but it has no personalised message in it. It has no Instagram handles saying, please post about us on Instagram. You must, if you're sending out products, include a little personalised postcard. It makes such a difference to that user when they receive it.
And I was just going to say, if you want an account to go and look at who is generating amazing content from their users, Corinne at Cornish Wear Artist, I don't know if anybody follows her, but she does this beautiful, you know, this sort of blue and white striped china that you see. She has generated phenomenal following, and in fact they're called the Stripies, aren't they, all her customers, and she's created reels on the back of the content. They're sharing so much content with her. So if you want to see user-generated content being done really well, go and check out Corinne at Cornish Wear Artist. She's doing an amazing job.
Thanks, ladies. Well, that is it. I hope you guys absolutely got so much from that. We're going to be sticking around for another kind of 5-10 minutes after this. So if you've got any questions, direct questions, come up, ask. I guess one key takeaway, because we have covered a lot today, one key takeaway from each of you that you want everyone here to leave with would be fantastic.
I would say that Facebook ads, or ads, social media ads, I should say, can never live alone. They have to be combined with organic presence. So people can't just run and pay ads without organic presence. It all comes together into one.
Yeah. Brilliant. Miller?
I would say knowing your audience, definitely, knowing how you can help them and knowing where they are.
Mine would be, don't be scared, pile into video. And there's a phrase, isn't there? You know, a picture says 100 words, but, you know, a video probably sells 1,000, so...
Or fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Phrase I give most of my clients when struggling with confidence is just post the damn thing. Just don't be afraid to get started. Everybody started somewhere, so just post the damn thing.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Like I say, we're going to hang around for 5-10 minutes. If you've got any direct questions, any advice, make sure you follow everybody on social media as well. I am sure they'll be happy to hear from you, but I hope you guys got loads from it. Enjoy the rest of the show and enjoy. Stay out that rain. Thank you, everyone.